Yes, now.
Can you? But,
Remembering One of Us by Abe Levine.
and this was read at your husband's funeral. Is that correct?
No. It was written in the UFT paper.
When your husband passed away?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sam Alexander.
Yeah. I noticed the obituary column of the New York Times that Sam Alexander died. Sam, a retired teacher, taught Jewish history in the Manhattan RTC Learning Center, retired teachers. If I were able to go, if I were able to go to the funeral, I would have told about Sam's involvement with the RTC, and I would have said the following. I remember Sam as an elementary school chapter leader. I served as UFT's elementary school VP for 33 years and got to know many of our chapter leaders. Sam was one of them. Sam was one of our members out on strike November 7th, 1960. Our first strike, it was a strike for collective bargaining rights. We gained collective bargaining in 1961. It was because of the strike. At the 40th anniversary of our strike, and on Teacher Union Day in November, Sam was present. At the luncheon, we were told to come on stage and be recognized as we were on strike in November 7, 1960. Sam walked to the platform proudly, very proudly stood, and was recognized by the crowd along with the rest of us. By the rest of us, I mean about a dozen or so. Of course, more than a dozen were out on strike on November 7, 1960, but not many attended the luncheon due to various reasons. Illness, living out of town, etc. I think the proudest day of Sam's life, or certainly one of his proudest days, was the day he went on strike in November 1960. I saw this on his face when he stood on stage and received the applause of the audience on Teachers Reunion Day. I noticed Sam in part because I had spoken to him and reminded him of the 40th anniversary of a historic strike. I wanted him to be there. Sam's death reminded me of the many things. First, how fast the ranks of our union pioneers are thinning. Sam was a pioneer along with 3,000 to 4,000 other teachers who were on strike November 7, 1960. Second, the courage that it took for many to go out on strike that day. The superintendent of schools said we would be fired if we went out on strike. Many of the teachers had children, the expense that goes with raising a family. It would have been easy for them to go through the picket line thinking of their family's responsibility. They stood firm and tall and refused to go to their schools. Third, November 7, 1960, has to be one of the proudest days of our lives. It was Sam's, I am convinced, as there were so many others on strike that November day. I had a long talk with Sam not too long before his death. He was a man proud of his involvement in his union. He had every reason to be proud, I thought. It was Sam who put a relatively small number of other teachers who made a great sacrifice to build a union that will be here long after our deaths. With what Sam would like as a legacy, I'm sure, for our voting members is to be aware of our history and never to forget those who went on strike on November 7, 1960 and made it possible for UFT as we know today. And he said what Sam would have been proudest? No, he was proudest of having served in the Israeli army. That's what made him, and he said that he was so proud that he was vouchsafed.
Please look at me, yeah.
He was so proud that he was vouchsafed that, as he said, that privilege of being able to go there and contribute to the creation of another Jewish state. This was made his life worthwhile, even in the deepest moments of despair, when there were money problems, when there was sickness in the family. He was always held back. He always blossomed when he thought of his life in Israel. It's true.
Now that you read that to me, we're going to properly start the interview. Can you please introduce yourself to me?
Yeah, hi, my name is Leila Blum Alexander. I'm the widow and the loving wife of Samuel Alexander, who was the love of my life, may I say this. I used to be very shy, and people said, "You never spoke? What happened?" I said, well, I met Sam Alexander, the love of my life, who thought everything I did was fantastic. Oh, she writes beautifully. Oh, she speaks beautifully. Oh, she's so brilliant. All this, of course, was hyperbole because it wasn't. But however, he gave me such confidence that I changed radically. When I go back to my high school reunion, they said the one who's changed the most is Leila Blum Alexander.
Tell me about Sam. Where And when was he born?
He was born, I said he was very fortunate that he was born in Borough Park when it was the place of very, very intense Jewish learning and literature and culture. Also at the time, there was no divisiveness. I mean, all the Jews, no matter the Reformed, egalitarian, conservative, Orthodox, each group was very highly respected. They had a thriving yeshiva. It was Eitz Chaim, which my rabbi here in Long Beach told me was the first yeshiva to teach Ivrit, Hebrew in Hebrew.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they learned culture.
When was Sam born?
Born on February 20th, 1925.
And he is the oldest child, youngest child?
Yeah, he had a younger brother.
He had a younger brother. And what can you tell me about where his parents came from?
His parents came from a place in Poland called something Gubernia, which means a Dubja Gubernia. And unfortunately, I think almost the whole area was wiped out in the Holocaust. There was a paper publishing the demise of the citizens, and I don't know where that book is right now. Sam had it, and I think he donated it to one of the synagogues, so that at least there's a little mention of a Jewish community that was entirely wiped out. But it did give birth to people who care very, very much about Zionit and Zion and labor. And this is very, very interesting because as Orthodox that the group was, they cared very, very much for labor. And Sam said his mother was a shop lady. She was a shop, I don't know what they did, but she was one of the leaders in the shop that was striving for the unions, which is very strange when you think of Minnie as a typical lady with a little babushka up there with a hat. And so young Minnie was leading a strike.
Did he grow up in a religious family?
Yes, they were. I thought they were very, very Orthodox, but compared to what's going on now, they were friggin' liberals, you know.
Were they? Yeah, they. And his parents came from the old country?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Sam is born in 1925, Borough Park, which is in Brooklyn?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Right?
He was born at home, yeah.
He was born at home, yeah?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And what can you tell me about his upbringing?
His upbringing was religious. They were unfortunately, the family did not have too much money, and his father was sort of wiped out with the Depression. I don't know what he did. He used to be, well, it sounds terrible, a junk man, but he used to collect, odds and bits and old clothes. And then he became a laundryman. He drove a little truck for the laundry, and people knew him and they liked him. In fact, he was not the best English speaker, but the Democratic Party took him and other people under the wing, and they made him citizens of the United States of America, and he was a committee man. What he said and did, I don't know. They said, you vote this way, and he said, I vote this way, and that's it. But they cared about the American people too.
And Sam grows up does he wear a yarmulke?
Yes, he wore a hat in the street. He told me his mother used to say, kippah is an indoor, so when you go out you wear a baseball cap or something like that. I guess she didn't want him to stand down. But he did. It was modern Orthodox, because he said his parents, when he was a little boy, his mother used to take him to the services on the high holiday in a stroller. He remembers seeing Mendy, his brother, going and sitting in the stroller. And the parents left food there on Yom Kippur when the children couldn't fast. So they were more modern.
What kind of education does Sam get? Where does he go to school? Does he go to a public school?
No, he went to Eitz Chaim until the 8th grade. And then he went to YU up in Washington Heights, but it was too much for him to travel.
What's YU?
Yeshiva University High School, YU. YU.
Upper West Side?
Yeah, it was all the way up, more like in Washington Heights.
Wow.
Opposite, because Yeshiva YU was up across the bridge. And he went there, and then he went to New Utrecht High School, where he was able to, they taught Hebrew there, of all things, and he was, of course, a Hebrew, he did it very, and he was in the Hebrew, and he sang, he had a lovely voice, he sang Hebrew songs, he was in plays, and he had a nice education there at New Utrecht High School. And then the war came about.
So when the war comes, he's 18 in 1943.
No, 41 it was.
41. No, the war broke out in 41, but he was too young to be drafted.
Was he 25? He was born in 25 to 41. 5 from
43.
11. Yeah, so he was about 16, I guess. When he was old enough to be drafted, he had an emergency appendectomy, so they had to delay that for a year. And fortunately, I mean, you need luck too, muscle. By the time he was able to, become, active, they were training people to become surgical technicians, and he was on a hospital train. It went from New York out to the West Coast and West Coast back to here. And all the way there and all the way back, they had all the Havirim from his B'nai Zion. So wherever he went to, each city, they used to meet him and give him a kosher meal. It was very nice. It was a lovely...
He's training to be a medic in the Army? Is that what they train him?
Yeah, a surgical technician.
What's a surgical technician?
You're not a doctor. You assist, like
a medic.
Yeah, that's it,
Who does all the prepping before the doctor comes in.
Yeah, but I don't know exactly what he was...
And then and then you said that they sent him to Egypt and to...
Well, by then the war was over, but he was traveling. And this is very interesting. I think you'd like this story. He's walking through the streets in Cairo, and 2 people in front of him were speaking Hebrew, but they were wearing the uniforms of the British soldiers. Remember, Palestine was under the aegis of Great Britain at the time. And they said, "Oh, look at that American bastard." So he said, "Slicha, excuse me, ain't any hamamzer, I'm not a bastard." "Oh, Haver!" They took him to the Egyptian consulate, not the consulate, but they had the officers' club. I imagine they must have been officers. And there he met a man named Aubrey, and we all know who Aubrey became, Abba Ivan. And his brother-in-law, and I forget, he was a Weitzman or a Herzl.
Ezra Weitzman.
He was Ezra, his brother, and Aubrey and Ezra.
It was the officers' club in Cairo.
Yeah, and they married sisters, who were Egyptian. So, and then somebody
Please
told,
look at me, yeah.
Then one of the members told him, he said, America's dumping everything. And there's going to be a Jewish state. We don't know when, we don't know how, why. There's going to be a Jewish state. We're going to need things. He said, "Do you think you could arrange for us to get some medicines?" He said, "We can be arranged." He had filled up a whole ambulance, and he rode, what he calls shotgun with the ambulance driver and a few Israelis. They went down to they weren't Israelis yet, they're Palestinians. They went down to the Negev, and they met a group there, and all that was given off to the nascent Jewish state. Now, he could have gone to jail for this.
Was it just medicines or was it weapons?
I don't know. I don't really know. I think it was mostly medicines. I don't think there was weapons. The weapons came from a lot of other soldiers, especially the Air Force people. They were really good.
It says here, I'm going to read what I have written down here. It says, Samuel was raised as a religious Zionist, a member of Hashomer Hadati.
That's true.
And volunteered for the Haganah in 1947, following his service in World War II. Following his involvement in Machal, he moved back to the United States and remained active in the American Veterans of Israel.
AVI, yeah.
He trained for the Haganah as a medic and went to Egypt to smuggle arms into Israel.
Well, he didn't do that just to, he was sent there. It just so happened.
Okay, so wait a minute.
He didn't go specifically for that.
After he gets discharged from the Army,
yeah.
He comes back to the States.
Yeah.
Right, he goes to probably Fort Dix or something like that.
He was. In fact, he came. Oh, no, there's another. After he was discharged, he was sent back to the States. But when he went back to the States, he didn't go to Israel until 1940,
no, right.
47, 40 years.
He came back here.
He went on Hakshara.
Where did he do Hakshara?
I think in New Jersey. It was a camp. They had a Jewish camp, too, for the summer.
For Bnei Akiva?
Yeah, Bnei Akiva.
When does he decide to go to Palestine?
When he was about 5 or 6, when he was about a kid, young. He always knew that.
But this is after the war.
Oh, after
He's already
the war.
Out of the Army.
Well, he
does Akshara.
Yeah,
he does Akshara after the Army?
Yeah, he went there. Because first of all, he didn't have a job. I think, he went to Israel. The thing that made him come back from Israel is not that he didn't like it. He said he had to have some sort of profession. And he thought he'd go. And he was fortunate enough, he got into Columbia, not the college, but the School of General Studies. And he wanted to be a social worker, which he would have been a damn good one. But what happened, he met me, and he needed a job because he wanted to get married. So he took a civil service test, and of course they put him someplace in Washington, and we were married. And then what happened, he had a RIF, a reduction in force. So I said, "Listen here, said, you may as well, you were taking courses at Teachers College to begin with, no, at School of General Studies to begin with. Why don't you see if they're training anybody? Well, he found out that Teachers College was offering in those days a 40-credit master's in education, especially for those people who never had education courses, which he never did. But he didn't have a bachelor's degree, but he was a few credits shy of that. So what happened? He was able to go to Teachers College, and everybody said here he was going to get his bachelor's. Lo and behold, he had a master's in education, and he liked student teaching at Little Red Schoolhouse because my family was active in that school. I graduated from their high school, and so did my sister. So he liked it. It was very, very progressive. Unfortunately, New York City's Board of Education was not a Little Red Schoolhouse. So he had a wonderful time teaching there. It wasn't a wonderful time for him, and
I want to get back to how does Sam get involved with Machal?
This rabbi came from Israel, and he said, we need to have people. So he told his parents, well, I'm going to Palestine. He says, how are you going to get there? He said, it's all paid for.
So he gets to Palestine, and what happens with him?
So they rushed him off to some. Well, where did they use? They used to sign the pledge in
Haifa.
No. He was up on the where they. Oh,
Take your time.
They had. It's where the zealots stood out, against the British, with the Nam. Well, it was that. Yeah. It was a big fight when the Egyptians, were conquering what was already, it was the state of Israel, and then after, but. And they went up there on a little cable car. Masada, yes, Masada. Yeah, so I think they went. I think they signed it. I think they were inducted in the army at Masada. I think.
Do you know about his time?
Yeah, he was there for more than a year. He went in, I guess, March. There wasn't the state of Israel until May.
Right.
And he was dancing on the kibbutz then with Golda Meir, and he had very interesting experiences.
What was his job? What did he do?
Oh, in Israel?
Yeah, no, like in the army when he was in the army.
He was a surgical technician. He was on these hospital trains going back and forth. So he had a skill that could be used very, very nicely. And he told me he was very good. And one of his friends said he remembers him calm, smiling, urging people not to worry. They're going to be okay. It's all right. It's not. One guy was yelling, "Machabed some Shelley." He said,
I want you to try and think.
What?
About.
I'm sorry he's not here.
Yeah.
He's been gone for 15 years now, too.
15?
July 1st. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember stories that he was telling you about the war in Israel?
Yes, he did. He said, he talked about Yom Kippur and the war. That was very, very interesting.
What's that, Yom Kippur?
Yeah, Yom Kippur in the field. They were guarding a tell, and every once in a while it said this Palestinians were lobbing them. And he said before they actually started, they came along with 2 giant containers, like they used to have these Sheffield milks in, filled with cholent. And they said, the chief rabbi said they should eat, they shouldn't fast, they need them. So he was in a Dati group, and what they did, they decided they would fast. But if one person was hungry, all of them would eat. They would not shame one. And it was very, very interesting. He said, the Yom Kippur service goes into the martyrology in the afternoon and mincha. And he said, instead of reading from the martyrology, there are so many Holocaust survivors that each one told his part. They didn't have women in that group. His part. And he said everybody said it was the most spiritual Yom Kippur they've ever spent. He said, and he still said, even when he was conducting services later on, he said that was the most spiritual experience.
This was Yom Kippur of probably 1948.
It was, yes, yeah. And he said he met a Hasidic rabbi who said, you just earned Olam Haba. I said, well, I don't know if you earned Olam Haba. I said, but I'm glad you had that experience. He said, it was very, very different.
What unit was he in?
Plugat Bet, I don't know.
Golani?
Golani, yes. Then he was also on a kibbutz.
Do you know which one?
I think Ein Hanetziv was one of them, you know that. And then there's another.
Tirat Tzvi?
I don't even.
Okay, there was another one, okay.
What's the one that had that oak tree that that was?
Yad Mordechai?
I said, I don't know. No, that doesn't sound familiar. But the one there was an oak tree standing. I don't know. But anyhow, then the war was over, and in Israel, and he said he wanted to find as a profession. He was in love with me. I didn't know him.
Did you meet him before or after?
No, it was after.
You met him when he came back from the war?
Yeah, what happened, we were counselors in Sedgwick, and he was going out with this other young lady, and I was going out with this gentleman, this other guy, and he went home. His girlfriend went home, and he was sitting next to me at a movie. He said, you want to come to blah, blah, blah? I said, sure, why not? What do I care? So we went out, and that was it. He was older, he was 26, and I was like 20, I was just 20. So he was like a mature man.
And it says here that he also was very active in the American Veterans of Israel.
He was.
Can you tell me about that?
It was AVI, it was a group.
AVI?
Yes, because my rabbi spoke at Sam's funeral, he said, Avi, he said, but he never called it, was called AVI. Anyhow, it was American Veterans of Israel, they reunited shortly after Sam came back. And of course, everybody, being a Jewish group, they were fighting. There's a lot of internecine fighting. And I said, as much as he loved it, and he did, he had friends, and he had a very, very good relationship with the Israeli consulate because he was fluent in Hebrew to begin with.
He was fluent in Hebrew.
Yeah, and he used to go pistol shooting with their sergeant at arms. He had a pistol. He went shooting in Queens.
What would they do with the AVI? It would be like...
Well, they raised money, they had parties, they had speakers, they had, yeah. They went to West Point every year to honor, because, what's his name? He was a West Point graduate.
Mickey Marcus?
Yeah, Marcus was buried there, and his wife also. So they used to use it as a symbol, and they always had somebody from some famous rabbi or some famous cantor, reciting the El Mole Rachamim.
Did he ever tell you some hard stories about the time that he was fighting in the war in Palestine, in Israel?
No,
did he talk a lot about it, or was
he
very reserved?
No, he told me, he said the first time he went out, and he came back, he was on a horse, and he thought, when he saw somebody from Borough Park, hey, here comes Smuel on a horse, he thought he was going to make it. Yeah, nothing, they ignored him, he came back. But he said the first time he was in the field in battle, he came back, he lost everything. He said he had upset stomach, wow. He said he went to the laundry room, so some young lady said, what can I do to help you? He said, give me a complete change of clothing. He said he didn't realize it was going to affect him, but he said that was the first and only time, really. He said because they were so busy doing what they had to be doing, and they were either taking care of the wounded, moving them from here to there, and they were each in a little spot where they were working, so they can't say.
Was he? Do you know what parts of the country he was in during the war? You said
a lot in the south.
A lot in the south.
Yeah.
Fallujah, does that ring a bell? Fallujah?
Yeah, it was Fallujah. Yeah, that's that name is familiar. What was it?
He was in their village, and there was
he was. Yeah, that's right.
So he was in Pluga Bet in Golani.
Yeah.
Do you know what brigade he was in?
Somebody for Golani Brigade. I put that thing on. I put that insignia on his tombstone.
Of Golani.
Mm-hmm.
Was he very proud of it?
Sure. He was also proud of what he did. He said he created something that people only dreamed about. I mean, this should come into fruition. He said his mother was walking the street when Israel was declared a state, and people stopped in the street, Minnie, let me shake your hand. Your son is now in Palestine, in Israel. They were so happy. And then he went to a performance of Habima, And Habima came to the United States, and they called up his parents, and they invited them to come down to the play. They did a play, I think it was the Dybbuk, I'm not sure what it was, but they invited them down, and his parents were so excited.
They were very proud of him.
Sure they were. Sure. And then he came back, and he was active in ISFA, Intercollegiate Zionist Federation of America. You didn't go to college here in the States. You went to college in Israel. Where did you go to school?
I actually went to college in Prague, in the Czech Republic.
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't study in Israel.
Oh, no kidding.
But,
I would like to go to.
But I'm just looking here, and I just don't want to miss anything.
Well, he was in the American Army too.
Yeah, but that's a little bit less.
Even then, he was a little bit lucky because he was a wrestler. I mean, this is when he was young. You got to realize this. And he was wrestling as they put on a show, and he slipped on mud, and he broke his leg. So his unit was going overseas to the Pacific Theater. So of course he couldn't go. So by the time, as I said, the war was over, and he came back. But he was still with the army, so he was in the peacetime army.
Right.
Which was a wonderful thing to be. If he
was in Morocco.
Yes,
Egypt.
Morocco. We had a date with Jeannie from Morocco. He was in Morocco, Egypt, and Iran. It was so hot in Iran. He said he would go in the street, and he'd walk a block, and they'd go to these pubs. They pour water all over himself. He'd walk another block. He'd be dry. He said it was so hot. And he liked it. He did, but he said he wasn't getting any place. So when he went back to the States, he took care of this kid because this young man had problems, a psychological problem. Harvey was going to wander off. So Sammy said, "Come back, Harvey." Otherwise, he didn't have to pay to get back to the States because he was taking care of this Harvey person who came from Massachusetts. But that was it. Life goes so fast. But as I said, the proudest thing he did was to be in the Israeli army. This meant the most to him.
Did he ever go back?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, in 1978, we had our 25th wedding anniversary. My dad was gone by then, so my mother she sent Sam and me back to Israel. There was a lovely, lovely tour we took with one of the people who had been in the Palestinian army in World War I. I forgot his Judah. I forgot his name. His wife was Devorah Lapson, Judah Lapson. His wife was Devorah Lapson, the dancer. Judah Lapson, he didn't go himself, but he had a group. He had a group going with this. We went to Israel, and we toured for 2 weeks. Then we all went back to the Hebrew University, and we studied for 3 weeks. And a lot of them did it to get the highest, And I did it because we had to have. I had 2 masters. I had enough, but I did this to get in-service credit, and I didn't have to pay. Well, I did pay. I forgot, but I do remember. I wanted my principal to sign that I went, and he was a son of a gun. He refused to do this. I said,
When you went back to Israel in 1978, did Sam take you or show you where he was fighting?
Sure he was. He showed me. Went to the Haganah place. We saw the. There were a lot of people. In fact, we went to one place and everyone saw. Here's where so and so fell. I remember this, and I wrote about it too. I said on Israel Independence Day, said the bells rang. And there we saw beginning aging warriors who remembered they went back in time to when they were young, and as the words of the poet Wordsworth, bliss was it to be alive, but the young was very heaven. When they were all young, and everything seemed very possible to them, and here they were, old now, and satisfied that they had worked for Israel, but as Sam said, he was disappointed that he didn't feel it was as idealistic as it was in 1948. But hey, America wasn't America by the time you got to 1805, and we still had slavery, and they said, all men are created equal. I mean, look at the people. I mean, to start something is very, very important, but to follow through is very hard. So he went back several times. He went back about 8 or 9 times after that. He went to several. He went from. I used to take I was an English major. I have a master's in English literature, so I used to take our children as they got older than the grandchildren, and we had the week vacation in February. So we'd go to London. We'd stay in a hotel. It was very cheap. It was like $700 for the whole week, and I'd take them to the theater when they were little. Oh, they loved it. I did. So Sam used to go to Israel, and I used to go to London.
And who would he see in Israel?
Well, he had cousins living there. Did you maybe know his cousin David Alexander? He died. His wife's name was Florence. She was very active in organizations, I think, in B'nai Zion. Well, what did B'nai Zion become?
I'm not quite sure.
But she was very, very good, because one of his cousins told me he was so proud of Florence, because they spoke so beautifully about her. And his cousin Annette lived in Israel. I don't think they're all living. But he had friends. He had a lot of friends, especially from the AVI. He was a very nice man from England, Stanley Maddox. We met him. He was in Machal, World Machal. So he was leading an English group over to Israel. I went there at Israel at 50. We went.
In 98, you guys went there?
Yes.
I was going to ask you, isn't that when they unveiled the Machal statue?
I don't know. I forgot. I should have known. But anyhow, they did, and this was very, very exciting. And in fact, he was annoyed. He said they took us to the wall, but then they wanted to take us up to they had the mosque. He said he didn't come to Israel to see a mosque. He saw plenty of mosques when he was in the Middle East. So he went, he was disappointed with that. But his whole life he did care very much about Judaism.
Okay.
He had a very nice voice, so he was the Hazan Sheni in our shul, conservative synagogue in Long Beach. And he said every time the rabbi used to have a question and answer, there was a colloquy between Sam and the rabbi. He said he was embarrassed to keep talking, he wanted somebody else to talk. But he cared very much. And he was religious, but not overly so. Well, look, he was married to me, so he was not a Shabbat, a Sabbath observer anymore. We used to go to the theater a lot, and he was kosher, but not crazy kosher. He ate fish out, but he didn't eat unkosher meat. And he sent the kids to yeshiva, which the yeshiva was too orthodox for them. It really was.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about Sam and about his participation, about this? It says here that he was smuggling arms in Egypt?
It wasn't arms. No, there was
medicine?
Medicine. No, he never said arms. Okay. It was medicine.
And that's while he was in the American Army.
Yeah. It was just, and not even, but things like towels and all sorts of things that people might need. It wasn't medicine per se, but instruments and books and yes.
Do you have any photos of Sam from
I did,
back in the day?
I did, but I can't find it.
Wait. Okay, we're going to stop for a sec. Hold on.
Yeah.
We're going to stop. Hold on.